Hello guys, and welcome to part 2 of the Naruto philosophy videos. I'm sorry for not keeping the time I set for this series. The truth is, I'm actually in my first year of college and the workload has been quite hectic. Apparently, Toku no Jutsu doesn't work on my lectures, so I have to always deliver on time. But I promise you guys and girls that I will give it my level best, just like Zoro and Ki. I think it's quite obvious that I have a very deep interest in anime philosophy and character psychology. This series is the first of many to come. As of next week, I will be doing a philosophical and psychological breakdown of the Attack on Titan's characters, so be sure to leave a comment below on which character you would love to see first. I'm especially happy today as I will be doing a character philosophical breakdown of the embodiment of pain. Nagato Uzumaki is a well-known character and a well-grounded character. I've always been intrigued by this character's view on reality, so I did a lot of research on his character development, and what I found out was quite surprising. Wow, Kishimoto, you really have a cryptic mind. So keep watching, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please hit that button and the bell icon for notifications on new content. I would like to apologize for my voice as I have not been feeling well lately, but anyway, without any further delay, let's begin. Nagato Uzumaki was born in the village hidden in the rain. His parents were members of the Uzumaki clan, which resided in Uzushiogakuri, and to top it off, this clan harbored the descendants of Asura Otsutsuki and were related to the Senju clan. But upon its destruction, surviving members of the clan disbanded and were spread across the 5 great nations. Other notable members of this clan are Mito Uzumaki, Kushina Uzumaki, Karin Uzumaki, and Naruto Uzumaki. Now, I know what most of you are thinking, that basically every character with red hair is an Uzumaki, so what about Gaara? Well, no. Gaara is not an Uzumaki. Although the members of the clan can be identified by their bright red hair, not all members share this quality. I think it's only fitting that I briefly review Nagato's past in order to understand what led to the birth of his philosophy. During the Second Great Shinobi War, Amegakuri was constantly ravaged by battles, as it was the battlefield of the 5 great nations. Because of this, a young Nagato and his parents would constantly take shelter to hide from all the violence and death around them. I believe it's within this time period that an aging Madara Uchiha would implant the Rinnegan in Nagato, unbeknownst to him and his parents. Some time passed and tragedy struck the young Uzumaki when 2 hidden leaf shinobi happened to stumble upon their humble abode. Acting upon their fear, Nagato's parents lunged towards the shinobis in an effort to protect their son, as they misunderstood the shinobi as threats. In retaliation, the 2 shinobi killed the boy's parents, thinking they were enemy shinobis, but upon further inspection, they realized that the 2 were just civilians. Unable to correct the great error they had made, they sought for forgiveness from, the distraught child, shaking in disbelief of what had just transpired. Without warning, Nagato awakened the power that had been bestowed upon him by the immortal ancestor of the Uchiha, and in a split second, he had murdered both shinobi in cold blood. Kishimoto shows us just how cruel life can be, and how it carries no prejudices as we witness a now orphaned 10-year-old Nagato struggle to survive alone, with no one to share his fears and pain with, wandering from location to location while trying to avoid the consistent fights around him. It's in this time that a depressed Nagato would be found by a tiny pup after fainting due to hunger. The young Uzumaki had finally found a friend to share the little he had with. He named the pup Chibi, and the 2 wandered the land together, sharing whatever scraps they would find. True solace was found in each other. Some time passed and the young Uzumaki had reached the end of his rope. As he was exhausted and hungry, with no other means of survival, he passed out, leaving his dog in a state of anxiety as it whimpered and agonized over the slow perishing Nagato. But hope would come in the form of a young girl, with hair as blue as the ocean and eyes as piercing as a falcon. She offered him bread, and Nagato, being the kind soul that he was, broke the bread in half to share it with his little furry friend. The girl laughed at this gesture and took a liking to the duo. She introduced herself as Konan and told him she was an orphan just like him. Konan took the duo back to her hideout, but the young lady was not alone. She lived with a young boy named Yahiko, who was also an orphan. When she introduces the duo to him, at first he seems to be against the idea of taking in another pair of mouths to feed. But he soon warms up to them and agrees to take them in. Nagato had now gained two more companions who he could share life's tribulations and joys with. He had taken a light interest in Yahiko's zest for life because, you see, Yahiko was the opposite of Nagato in every way. He was more optimistic and positive of life's shortcomings, having a bright and warm smile that could shift the mood of anyone around him. These characteristics are complemented with his blazing eyes and confident swagger. The trio and their dog would go on having many adventures, but Tragedy, who had been an old friend of the young Uzumaki, would pay him another visit, this time in the form of Chibi's untimely death, which occurred when the trio had unknowingly wandered into a battlefield. They would later on host a funeral for the pup and mourn their little furry friend. Some time passed, and the trio, after witnessing the unending war in their land, decided to learn ninjutsu to protect themselves and end the fighting around them. The progenitor of this dream was Yahiko, of course, but as time went by, Nagato had adopted this dream as well. Without having a lot of options, they came across Jiraiya and his companions, Orochimaru and Tsunade. The three had just survived an encounter with Hanzo, who had given them the title of the Three Sannin of the Leaf. The trio of orphans approached them and asked them to train them. Now, remember that Nagato's parents had been murdered by two leaf shinobi, so his opinion of them was not good. Jiraiya agrees to teach them due to the guilt he felt for being part of the war. However, he taught them how to survive and not ninjutsu. It's later on when he saw Nagato's eyes and speculated that he had found the child of prophecy that would save the world, believing him to be the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths. During their training, Nagato excelled in every field of ninjutsu, and when the trio had managed to defeat Jiraiya's shadow clone, their master left, believing he had taught them everything they needed. Jiraiya was not the only one who thought this, as Yahiko shared this view, believing that Nagato would be the savior of the world. Some time passed, and the trio formed an organization known as Akatsuki, which had the mission to stop the wars within Amegakuri and give control back to its people. Hanzo, who had lost interest in procuring peace for his people and the world, and was now only interested in maintaining his power, had heard of their achievements. He felt threatened and decided to host a meeting with the group or the group leader to pursue this dream together. But after some time, with the influence of Danzo Shimura, Hanzo had decided to betray the group and kidnapped Konan. When Yahiko and Nagato arrived at the venue set up by Hanzo, he asks Nagato to kill Yahiko, otherwise he would kill Konan. Yahiko, not wanting his friend to carry such a burden, thrust himself into Nagato's kunai. It's really a sad scene as we see the light that had been a beacon of hope for the young Uzumaki for so long go out. Nagato blacks out as rage takes control of him, unleashing the power of the Rinnegan and summoning the Gedo statue, which was also the corpse of the Ten Tails, killing everyone in sight and taking Konan back from Hanzo, but not before being permanently injured by the traitor. After this battle, Nagato decides to leave the village of Amagakuri alongside Konan, as the previous members of Akatsuki had all been murdered by Obito, and marking a line across their headbands to symbolize that they were no longer shinobi of Amagakuri. The team that had been originally compromised of 4 had now been reduced to only. Nagato, having experienced all this, had decided that the way Yahiko wanted to procure peace was impossible, and the philosophy of pain was born, as he now believed that in order for peace to reign, individuals must first experience the same amount of pain, and through this action, no one would want to start wars. He would later on form a new Akatsuki that was more of a mercenary and criminal organization, unlike the previous one, this time with Obito's influence. Nagato decided it would be fitting for Yahiko to continue leading the Akatsuki, and hence made his corpse the Deva path of pain. He would later on return to the village and spark a civil war with Hanzo, and later on kill him. And those who followed him suffered the same fate, including his family. The people of the village began to view Pain as a god, and he would lead them on as he would sometimes make it rain. Nagato was a timid child who never had much to say, and for most of his life, Yaiko had been the one to do all the interacting. But as certain events in his life began to unfold, he was forced into a corner where he had to choose whether to live or die, and the choice of life came at a hefty price. For his entire life, people had viewed him as a savior, someone who was destined to save the world. He himself never believed it, as he saw himself to be just a man. But after Yaiko's death, he took on a role that man should never take. He was God, and he chose to be a wrathful God who would crush anyone who defied or doubted him. He went as far as to kill anyone who still followed Hanzo, but in some instances he retains his compassion, as it is seen when Kakazu and Hidan do not return from their battle. He reprimands Deidara after he calls them walking dead. But I'm not really sure, I can't remember if it was Deidara or Kisami. But anyways, he shows a bit of compassion for his fellow Akatsuki, but still he looks down on humanity as he does not trust their judgment. His mind turned towards achieving peace at the cost of many lives, killing his old master Jiraiya without hesitation as he viewed it for the greater good. This form of thinking can be compared to act utilitarianism, which was derived by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. It states that a person's acts is morally right if and only if it produces the best possible results in that situation. To some extent, I agree with Pain's approach, but as his name implies, pain was what drove and guided him, blinding his judgment and leading him in the direction of hatred. So rather than ending the pain, he was continuing the cycle of hatred he spoke about. I'll leave the rest to you. You guys decide, was he right or wrong? And please share your views on this topic in the comment section. I know what most of you are wondering right now. Why did he spend all this time giving a detailed review of Nagato's past when the whole point was the philosophy? Well, I believe that apart from representing the different abilities of the Rinnegan, the 6 paths of pain also symbolized the 6 most important traumas of his life. The loss of his mom and dad, the loss of his first friend, the loss of the one who gave him new hope to live, the loss of a dream, and finally, the loss of hope.